Hey, Lashpreneurs. On today's episode, we're diving into some numbers. We're going to talk about your break-even pricing. This is an episode, this was actually the third episode that I did in the Lessons of a Lashpreneur show back in 2018. So it's been a minute. In fact, those episodes were Facebook Lives that we then repurposed on the podcast. We've come a long way. But we are focusing this summer on marketing or not marketing, on financials and getting you fairly savvy, if not amazingly savvy with your numbers, all in preparation for our Know Your Numbers Masterclass that's happening August 18th. We are opening up registration in just a couple weeks, but I wanted to plant that seed on your radar. The Know Your Numbers Masterclass is happening August 18th. It will be live, and we're going to go into the profitability of your business. And I guarantee that you'll know by the end of that class whether your business is profitable or not, or your money back. Yep. That's my guarantee. That's how good I'm going to teach that class. It was wildly popular last year and like an amazing aha for people to actually finally know how to like navigate their numbers in their business, how to actually understand how to track it, and how to actually control the profit in your business so that you have more of it, because your pay as the owner comes from profit. So if you want to pay yourself more, if you want to know when to raise your prices or when you need more clients or what to charge, suggest you know your numbers. And so today we're getting into some foundational stuff that you need to understand as a business owner to make sure that the way that you have priced your services at a minimum is making sure that you're breaking even in the business. Now, we're not talking about you and your goal income and when you're, living the high life, driving Mercedes Benz and like hashtag blessed on Instagram. That's not what today's episode is about. Today is about making sure that at the minimum of number of clients that you have, or what you may have if you haven't started your business yet, that you are priced in a way that will be able to sustain and keep your doors open and keep you at least afloat in your personal life. And then we build from there. But if we're not even close to being priced at the break-even pricing, we need to adjust our prices and then start to get more clients in the door. Because if you are super, super cheap, or even if where you're priced at, even if you took a full load of clients, or if you're working 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's still not making you money, we got some issues. Okay. Now, this involves a lot of money mindset stuff, right? A lot of ick and I'm bad with math and all these beliefs that somebody else projected onto you. Chances are you're not bad at math, homie. You just haven't been taught how to do it in a way that makes sense to you. Okay, so we're going to break it down as we do Lashpreneur style. Super, super simple. Now, there is a guide that goes along with this, so I highly recommend you download the break-even cost analysis worksheet, basically fancy way of like, hey, I have a spreadsheet that you can use to do this and write it out so that you don't have to like figure this out on your own. This is actually a training that we have inside of the Lashpreneur Society, our signature group business coaching program for solo business owners looking to go from overlooked to fully booked. We do have another training after this one that will not be on the podcast called your goal income pricing. So what price do you need to be at to reach your goal income? But we got to start with a break even to make sure at a minimum our business is set to at least cover itself and cover your bare minimum income pay. So you can go to lashpreneur.com/breakeven to download this free little worksheet that goes along with this. It'll make it much easier and much less confusing when you are actually following along and writing it out as we go. Because just listening to this, while you'll get some information, it's helpful when you're actually going through it and figuring out what your break-even pricing is. Because otherwise, it's just going to be like, you're not going to be able to do math in your head if you're lashing right now. So if you're doing that, pause, download the worksheet, come back when you have time to go through it. It will be well worth your time to understand these things. So first and foremost, when it comes to running a business, we have two different types of expenses. We have what are called fixed expenses. We have what are called variable expenses. It's not really that big of a deal that you know the difference, but fixed expenses, pretty self-explanatory. It's anything that's the same every single month. So your rent, your phone bill is probably the same every month. Maybe your internet is the same every month. Your booking software is the same. Like, it doesn't change month to month. It's the same. It's fixed. Then we have what are called variable expenses, and that's something that changes or fluctuates, or maybe you don't pay it every month. Could be lash supplies, right? You may have a big order one month and that may get you through like a month or two, or you don't need to order as many. Credit card processing fees are also variable unless you're doing the exact amount of sales every single month, which is not likely. Marketing sometimes can fluctuate some. So maybe some months you're not spending money at all on ads. Maybe some months you're spending $500. Maybe some you're spending $475, but it changes every month. So that's the difference. So we want to kind of just map those out, and that worksheet, you can go ahead and do this, or you can, write it out on a piece of paper, whatever works for you. So you'll have your fixed expenses and you'll have your variable expenses. So we want to come up with a total for both. Now, if you're brand new to business, this is where you kind of need to understand what are the costs involved with opening your business. So you have to think about, okay, there's going to be rent involved in some capacity. If you're working from home, maybe not, but you can also write off a portion of your mortgage or your rent as long as it's legal for you to work at home. If you are doing it illegally or under the table, don't write it off, right? That's just like a crack dealer calling the police that somebody stole his crack. You're doing something illegal, don't draw attention to it. But you didn't hear that from the Lashpreneur. Do everything legally, and you don't have to worry about getting sued. So you'll have things like rent. You can write off your phone, your like cell phone bill as a business expense because you're likely using it to post on social media and book appointments and contact clients. So it can be a write-off. But think through, do I have to pay for trash? Do I have to pay electricity? Do I have to pay for booking software? Do I have to buy supplies? You can get a laundry list of inventory items that you might need when you're getting started at our prep and planning guide. Again, I'll link it in the show notes. But for the most part, those of you listening are probably already in business, so you kind of know what your general expenses are. Just go look at your bank account and classify them, whether they were fixed, it's the same every month, or they're variable, and just look at the last month, right? We don't have to go 6 months back. Just look at last month, start there, and then fill out the numbers in the fixed and the variable expenses. So, okay, then we're going to get into personal expenses. Okay, so what is, and we're talking about break-even pricing here. We just want to make sure that your business can stay afloat to have a chance to thrive. So it's kind of survival-based thinking. I want you to say what your income is, or write down what your income is for you to just cover the bare minimum. We're not talking about you going out to dinner 4 times a week. We're not talking about you getting a new car. We're not talking about you upgrading to a nicer neighborhood or a nicer house. We're not talking about you traveling. We're not talking about a lifestyle that you want to live in this exercise. We're talking about that your rent, your food, your bare minimum is covered for you to maintain or, support your lifestyle. Now, if you have a pretty extravagant lifestyle as it is, we're not using what your current extravagant lifestyle is. Sorry. That's not what we do in here, especially when you're starting out in business. We're not living the good life until the business is making some money, but we've got to make sure that at a minimum, our business is covering those things. So if for whatever reason, you can't get down to a bare minimum lifestyle number that you have to have $5,000 a month coming in, then we might look at what would it look like to get a secondary job until your business is at the level that it can sustain the lifestyle that you have. Because when you're new to business, it takes time to get to the level where you can pay yourself a really good living because you're still figuring out how to run the business, get clients in the door, get your results, get the experience, get your marketing going, all that kind of stuff, your price point. It takes time. So I am of the methodology of let your business grow organically and let your learning curve for running a business grow organically rather than trying to force it and making really poor decisions and duct taping your business together. So I'd rather you have a side hustle or another job that provides a consistent paycheck to help make up the difference of what your business is not doing until it's ready to do that. Because otherwise you're going to be doing things like doing significant discounts, like letting clients walk all over you, like you're not building out a sustainable business model when you're trying to grow it faster than it's ready to. Because most businesses fail in the first 18 to 24 months. Now in the lash industry, we tend to be fairly profitable fairly quickly, at least in the beauty industry as well. We don't have much startup. We don't have much overhead costs because, for lashes, you only need some supplies, a light, maybe a tablet. You can use your phone to check people out and supplies and a bed. Right? Did I say all that stuff? So it's very minimal overhead. It's not like opening up a gym where you need like $300,000 worth of equipment just to have an opening day. So write your personal expenses down, whether it's your rent, your mortgage, if you have a separate phone, one for work, one don't have that yet, but your phone bill, any of your personal utilities, what your food costs are, your transportation, your car payment, anything like that. Write out what your personal expenses are so you know at a minimum what it is that you need to be paying yourself so that we can make sure that we're incorporating that into our pricing to stand a chance for you to get to the point where you can pay yourself consistently and cover your bills. And then again, if you want to learn more about how to create your goal income pricing and what the strategies are for that, that's inside the Lashpreneur Society. All right. And then now this may not apply to you outside of the US. I don't know what tax laws are like outside of the US or whatever else you call it out there. You guys call it different things, but we call it taxes, which means we pay the government when we're profitable. Now, If you're new to business, you don't pay taxes until you're profitable. So if you did $1,000 in sales this month, but it cost you $2,000 to run your business, you don't owe any taxes. You took a loss. We only pay taxes on the profit. Now, if you did $3,000 in sales and your expenses to run your business was $2,000, you have $1,000 profit. That's what you pay taxes on. Now, you can have an accountant tell you how much to set aside for taxes or what your tax obligation are. We want to make sure that we're accounting for taxes coming out and being able to pay taxes and setting aside money for taxes in our pricing, right? We don't want to forget about that because that's problematic. And ideally, hopefully, you'll be profitable someday that you'll owe taxes. So my general rule of thumb, but again, always check with an accountant, is set aside about 5% of sales, right? Sales. So it's a very small amount. You actually owe more in taxes, but it's on the profit. So we're just looking at sales. Let's say you're doing $2,000 in sales, set aside 5% of that as a good rule of thumb to make sure you have more than enough to cover your tax obligations whenever tax time comes around. If that seems a little high, you can always drop it a little bit. But again, you're not going to owe taxes if you're not profitable. This is just getting in the habit of being diligent to set aside money for taxes so you're not having to scrape and scrimp and steal from next year's sales to try and pay this year's taxes. So once you have those numbers, and you'll see this on the spreadsheet, you're going to add all of those numbers up. So your fixed costs, your variable costs, your personal expenses, and your taxes, and come up with basically what the cost is, what the expense is to run your business and keep you afloat, right? So you'll come up with a nice, hopefully decently sized number. And then once we've done that, that's kind of like, okay, this is what my operating costs are for the business and what I need to pay myself for this thing to keep moving along. Then we want to go look at how much do I need to be charging at a minimum for my clientele to make sure that I'm covering that total monthly expense to keep the business and myself afloat. So you're going to take that number, that total number of expenses plus taxes, and add it into the spreadsheet. And then we want to look at the average days a week you'll work. Now, new to business owners tend to struggle with this because they're like, I can work 7 days a week. I can work 10 hours a day. I'll work whenever anybody wants to. Do not build out a business now that is not sustainable later. Those are the decisions that newbies make because they come from a place of desperation of like, I just need to take anybody. There's actually more, there's like a scarcity strategy psychology in marketing where the less available you are, the more valuable you seem. So let's come up with something reasonable. Full-time would be anywhere from 4 to 5 days a week, anywhere from 6 to 8 hours a day. Do not go into the 10-hour, right? Your body will break down. This is a very physically demanding job. Do not base your numbers off of you working more than, I would say, 32 hours a week of you actually doing services. Okay, so that is my advice to you to make this a long-term plan. Because look, if you say that you're available 70 hours a week, so 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, with this pricing, your break even will be much lower, right? And your goal income pricing for your clients will be much lower than if you had a higher price point. If you have a higher price point, you need less clients to make the same amount of money. So let's be intentional about the business model that we're building out now that we want to have a year from now, because hopefully a year from now, you're getting to be where you're fully booked, right? Where you've got a lot of clients coming in, you have very little wiggle room in your schedule. And if you're open 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're going to be freaking miserable. So let's keep it to no more than, I'd say, 32 hours a week, maybe 35 for full-time, right? So we can base our pricing off of that so that our price point can be an appropriate level for the amount that you want to work. Now, if you want to go less than that, or you're only available 2 to 3 days a week because you have another full-time gig, that's fine. But again, we can use this to plan for what we want the business to be when it's supporting us fully and we don't have any other side gigs. So that's kind of how I would look at your pricing is, what is it I want it to be in the future, let's say a year from now, if all problems were solved and like we're good to go. So maybe the average days a week you'll work is 4. And then you'll figure out, multiply that times 4 weeks. So how many days a week times 4 weeks will get the average number of days in a month that you'll work. So for example, if I'm going to average 4 days a week and there's 4 weeks in a month, then I'm averaging 16 days a month of work. You following me? Again, the spreadsheet will help a lot with this. So what we're going to do then is we're going to take your total monthly expenses and we're going to divide it by the number of days a month that you're going to work. So let's just say I'm going to just give some examples here. Hold on, let me pull up my calculator. So let's say I need $3,000 to cover my personal expenses and the business expenses, and I'm going to work an average of 16 days a month. So I'm going to take $3,000, divide it by 16. That means that I need to average $187 and some change a day. Okay, so now I've got, cool, this is my sales goal for a day to make sure that I'm at least breaking even. And now I want you to kind of think through conservatively, right? We're not talking goal income here. We're talking conservatively. On average, how many clients a day would I see? Now, when you're new to business, I want you to put in maybe 1 to 2 in that field. If you've been in business a while or you know how many clients you see on average, great, go ahead and plug that number in. If you're taking more than 6 clients a day, your body's going to break. You need to update your pricing. You need to raise your prices and pull back on your time. Your body cannot sustain. I know some of y'all are in your 20s and you got joints that can go for days. Repetitive stress injuries are very common in our industry. And here's the thing, if you're a business owner and you get injured, you have no income coming in. So let's be conservative with how much we're taxing our body right now and raise your prices as opposed to working more hours. Got it? All right. So average number of clients a day. Again, if you're new, put 1 to 2 there. Because we want to be very conservative that it may take you some time to get some clients in the door. So, 4 to 8 clients in a week when you're just starting out is actually fairly decent. So let's keep it a little on the conservative side. And if you've been in business a while, you know these numbers. So plug in how many clients on average you see in a day. But I would still go a little bit less because your break-even pricing, we want to have some wiggle room to get a goal income in there. And if we're kind of like, well, this is what I'm fully booked and this is the minimum price that I need to cover everything, it's not going to feel worth it. Okay, so now that you've got your average number of clients a day, let's say 2, we're going to take that $187.50. So that's, what did I call it? The average dollar amount you need to make a day. We came up with $187 in my example, and we're going to divide that by the average number of clients. So I said in that example, 2 clients a day. So those 2 clients need to be doing $187 total. Right? So we're not including tip in this. If you want to include tip in this, that's fine. Take it off the top. But in this example, that means that I need on average to charge about $93 or $94 per client. Okay. So if we're talking eyelash extensions, a full set, right, would be $120 to $300 plus, just depending on the area you're in which case, yes, in this example, you would be more than priced well, but we want to look at your regular maintenance ongoing appointments, your fill appointments, your lash lift and tints, the things that people come back repeatedly. With full sets, that's kind of just like the barrier to entry to get the service the first time, but really where our bread and butter when we're fully booked is the ongoing fills, right? Facials, Brazilians, you guys will be fine. But if you're looking at it, if I'm looking at fills and they're $93, I need to be charging about $93 to $94 per client. Chances are most of y'all are below that, right? So depending on your numbers, it's here to inform you of, are you set up for success with your current price point? Now, if you currently charge less than your break-even pricing, either raise your prices, that would be the given. Some of y'all, that's a big jump. Like some of y'all charge $60, $65 for a fill. We might need to come up a little bit, or alternatively, we look at lowering our expenses, right? So we look at, do we really need everything here? Do I need to budget on some things so that I can keep my price point at a reasonable level? Or do I need to do more marketing to get more clients in the door? Do I need to add in more days to the week or more hours to the day because you're only working 2 days a week? Who knows? Okay. So that is just giving you a benchmark to look at to assess, where am I at? Am I at a price point that is meant to break even or not? Okay. So all of that to say, I know it's math. I know it's numbers. This is just information to inform you to make smart, wise decisions. Now, if your break-even pricing is around or below your current price point, you're good to go. Right? You're good. You know that at least you're covering your costs when you're taking, how many clients a day at whatever price point you charge, that you'll start to see some profitability, and at least the business is covered when you're pricing yourself and you're looking at very low numbers, because ideally we're looking at you getting to be fully booked. That's the plan. So make sure that you go through this worksheet, download the lashpreneur.com/breakeven, work through it, And then also mark on your calendar, August 18th is the Know Your Numbers Masterclass. We'll be opening up invitations and registration in about 2.5 weeks. So stay tuned to the podcast, look at your email. We will be sending out information on that masterclass coming up shortly. All right, y'all, have a good one.